Hello, everyone, and welcome to the final day of the 2021 Summer Series. Today, we've got two more workshops for you. The first, which will be starting in just a second, is with Team Spyder on sustainable fundraising and entrepreneurship. And then after the break at 5:50 p.m. Pacific, we'll have our last panel of the year, the empowerment panel, with a whole host of teams from Warlords to Code Orange to the Robot Dolphins, and with a special appearance by Pauline Cassie. Avery, take it away.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming to the Robot Dolphin Summer Series. As it was said, I'm from Team Spyder 1622, and I'll be presenting about sustainable fundraising and entrepreneurship for your team. So during this workshop, you're going to learn how to provide sustainable fundraising for your robotics team by focusing on the community, families, students, and everyone else, instead of going to learn how to provide. Fundraising is not the most exciting part of robotics, but it is one of the most important, because without fundraising, you don't really have the money to do the more exciting parts like building a robot. And I'll also be going over entrepreneurship and other ways to support your team in ways that help boost fundraising as well. First off, I'm going to start about talking about Team Spyder. Going on our 17th year, Team Spyder 1622 is the robotics team that represents Poway High School Engineering Academy. We build and program robots for programs like FRC, FTC, but we are so much more than that. As members, Spyders also get to be part of a real business environment and be involved in our community with events ranging from fairs to local government meetings. Our goal is to provide support to get others involved in STEM. We travel to events around the world, connect with experts and professionals, and build sustainable relationships and opportunities to make this happen. When you get started with fundraising, it's important to go over some foundation questions that kind of help you realize where you're going to be heading with your whole fundraising goal. So what are you fundraising and what for? What is your mission, vision, and goals? Do your mission and vision and goals align with your fundraising? Have you created a business plan or a plan for fundraising? Do you have a donation letter to communicate? Do you have a tiered structure for sponsorship? And what are you giving to those that donate? Once you kind of cover these main questions, and there are more questions to cover as well, you can kind of get started and know where you're headed with your fundraising. So mission, vision, and goals. When you're thinking about your mission vision, it's good to consider where will you be in the future and how will you reach your vision. With goals, you want to consider what goals will you create to accomplish your vision and mission, your priorities, what action items will you do this season to meet your goals, and then your core values. What are the underlying beliefs of your team? What are you passionate about and what drives your team? Once you kind of think through all of these things, and as well as the foundation questions we already discussed, then you can keep moving forward. Think about FIRST's mission. The mission of FIRST is to inspire young people to be science and technology leaders and innovators by engaging them in exciting mentor-based programs that build science, engineering, and technology skills, that inspire innovation, and that foster well-rounded life capabilities, including confidence, communication, and leadership. So this is an obtainable goal for FIRST, but is it also obtainable for your team? On a smaller scale, are you able to accomplish this? And then you also want to think about your own team's mission. And again, is it obtainable for your team? Do you believe that it can be accomplished by your team? And does every member share the same belief that it can be accomplished? Without that belief, then you can't succeed in any of your goals, including fundraising. So driven by vision and goals. A team that is driven is a team that does whatever it takes to accomplish their vision, mission, and goals. One that is driven is compelled, pulled, and carried along. It is through their own passion, participation, action, willingness to take risks, persistence, and a sure will or sense of commitment. Have you asked yourself and each member on your team, am I committed? Am I really giving all the effort I can into the team and all of its efforts and programs? Keep in mind that it takes the entire community, businesses, parents, and students all working together. Your team is the entire community, not just your nucleus team. When you sign up for a robotics team, you are the person signed up, but your parents and siblings and anyone that you kind of communicate with will end up being involved with your robotics team as well. And then the 3 secrets to fundraising. Build a relationship of trust, grow the relationship, and then become good friends. Knowing these 3 things will definitely help along the way as you're fundraising for your team. And then transparency. Transparency is the key to raising more money. It provides trust. It helps others learn about what you need. And what transparency means is that you're never lying about your numbers or data. You're giving what you're presenting to sponsors or parents or anyone else is the complete truth, and you're being really honest about it. And then your budget. In order to present this, you need to create a business plan and keep your budget really simple to understand. Make sure you're telling the truth, and your budget should reflect your needs. And again, your budget should be transparent. On the right is a really simple table with our budget. We have our total funding at the bottom, and then different things that we have, and then the amounts that they cost. It makes it really easy for sponsors, anyone who's donating, to know where their money is going and like the amounts that we need for each type of thing that we're fundraising for. And then here we have a sample donation tracking log. Again, it's really simple. It has a bar for sponsors, parents, students, and then another one for overall progress. Visuals like this make it easy to understand, while also having the numbers kind of make it so you're really telling data. It's not just a simple picture. And whenever anyone's donating, they can really see how the progress is going. And then a fundraising motto. Never worry about the money, it will show up, and everyone wants to be part of a winning team. However, winning is never your goal, and winning should not sacrifice teaching and learning or the goals of the organization. And winning is not a trophy. Winning is demonstrated in a successful program or business where you have met your goals. And in the case of fundraising, meeting your goals is where you have met the desired amount of fundraising for your team. Marketing and sales principles. You will always make 33% of your goal if you're doing everything to achieve it. And while 33% may not seem ideal, like obviously you want to make 100% of your goals, 33% is better than nothing. It's a guarantee. As long as you're trying, you're going to get something, and that's obviously better than nothing. And then the 5 irrefutable principles of selling. Customers only buy products and services that benefit them. They're probably not going to donate to your team unless they're going to get some sort of benefit out of it. Customers only buy products, and then value comes with a price tag. Credibility is dependent upon 2 factors, trust and expertise. The most valuable gift you have to offer is yourself. Be yourself and all in. And this is a give and give relationship. If someone's going to give money to your team, you should also give them some sort of benefit back so that it has this sort of relationship to it. And then here are the 12 principles for an effective sales process. Believe in what you sell. Keep the focus on your prospects. Keep better prospecting, better selling. Seek to be trusted, not liked. Collaboration, not competition. People buy emotionally. People only buy when they have pain. And what this one means is that people are going to buy or donate money to a team to sort of alleviate some sort of problem they have. So if they feel like maybe they haven't been the most generous with their money, they're donating to kind of alleviate that mental problem they have with themselves. It kind of ties into number 6, where people buy emotionally. 8 is that you need a system for prospecting and selling. 9, you can't convince anyone of anything. Sales is a process of disqualification. Give prospects the freedom to say no, and give yourself permission to fail. Like I said before, you're going to make 33% of what you are fundraising for as long as you're actively trying. And as long as you understand that like you're going to get something, you're probably not going to get 100% of the way to your goal. You just have to understand that and understand that for yourself. And then when it comes to marketing, you have to figure out entrepreneurship, your business plan, who your target market is. You have to create your marketing plan, and then you can get into the overall fundraising. When you're fundraising or really doing anything for your team, you need to be able to take risks, and that can be understood with the acronym SWOT, so strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, and then at the end of that, you want to come up with a contingency plan. And like I said, it's not only fundraising, it's really any aspect of your team that you have to consider this for. So strengths, An example for a robotics team would be comprised of multiple schools. Maybe there's a computer and CAD lab, wood and metal shops, interested quality students, like a good history on the team, or a good reputation. Possible weaknesses for a team could be a lack of trained mentors with skills, lack of funding, lack of critical skills training for students, or maybe you're having trouble recruiting skilled students. Opportunities for a team can include securing sponsors, recruiting trained mentors, coordinating STEM and Akura programs with FIRST programs, and then maybe there's a lot of growing interest in STEM at your school. And then threats to a robotics team could be a loss of sponsors, loss of shops and labs, change in school policy and or objectives, loss of student interest, or even loss of funding for your robotics team. Once you kind of figure out different parts of that for your team, you can come up with a contingency plan. So in this table, you can write out what your risk is, what the likelihood of it happening is. So if the risk is losing funding and you notice there's kind of been a downward trend, maybe you're getting less money from your sponsors each year, you can say that the likelihood is a 2 or 3 if you're already noticing it happening. The impact level. If the event occurs, what is the impact to the team? If your funding for your robotics team goes way down, you're not going to have enough money to get the correct parts for your robot or go and host very many events or travel for robot competitions. So like that's going to have a pretty big impact if you really are losing that much funding. And then your risk score is the likelihood times the impact. And then once you figure that out, the higher the number, the more important it is and like the higher priority it needs to be on your team trying to figure and solve that problem. So if you have a high impact score for losing funding, you need to make that your priority and really focus on fundraising. Before you really begin fundraising for your team, you have to do your entrepreneurship, which includes marketing and branding. So with your marketing plan, it is tied to the vision, mission, and goals, and it kind of emphasizes the targeted funding goals. Again, you really need to show transparency, and all members of the team need to be involved with boosting your team and like marketing your team to people that they know. And then use design thinking. Use a design process to develop your plan and your logo and any sort of branding you're using. You need standards, logo, and trademark. So use a unifying thematic visuals that tie into all aspects of the team. So we're called Team Spyder. So obviously our logo is a spider, and then we have a spider web within the Y, and it's really simple. It represents our team, and it's recognizable. And you can make the logo with Adobe Suite. I suggest Illustrator or Photoshop, but really any program works. And then, like I said, your logo should be simple. It should be easy to relate to. So not too much symbolism or hidden meaning. So spider, we have a spider logo. It's easy to identify from afar. And then create standards for how it will appear on shirts or goods. So our t-shirts are black. So whenever we have a black background, we use the same exact logo, it's just in white. And then whenever we have a white background, we just use black ink. Then when it comes to communication with the marketing aspect of your team, you have your good logo design. You can create business cards. Make sure to include your logo, student leadership, coaches, vision and mission, potentially on the other side, anything that you want to communicate about your team in a simple manner. Additionally, with communication, you want to have strong designed t-shirts and uniforms, as well as drive team uniforms, pit design, handouts, brochures, and buttons, and I will cover all of these on the next few slides. So here's an example of our t-shirts from one year. We design them every year to match the theme of the competition. So it's always our simple spider logo with some sort of aspect around the logo to communicate the theme. And then on the back of the shirts, again, there's our logo as well as our sponsors. So that's one of the benefits that I will talk about is that sponsors get to be on the back of our t-shirts, and that's one of the benefits that they get from donating to us. And then here are our drive team costumes from one year. Again, it ties into the theme, and because it is more of like a fun costume, it attracts attention and it's good marketing to show off our team. Here is the pit design. We have our big Spyder branded logo and banners to hang. We have a Think Safety poster. That's kind of one of the things that Team Spyder likes to emphasize, safety. And then in the top right, you can see an example of our pit where we have all of these things hanging up, and it's a very branded pit. It very much represents our team with the simple colors and logo. And then here are a couple examples of buttons, handouts, brochures, and newsletters. We have different buttons for different themes for a variety of different years for the competition. In the middle is a handout newsletter that we have about our team. So whenever we're at competitions or any sort of outreach event, we're able to hand these out to people and tell them all about our team. Again, we have the Spyder logo down in the corner, and it's a good way to advertise and talk about our team. And then on the right, we have another handout. It's more visual and fun, and so it's going to attract attention and be a good way to demonstrate things that we have done with fewer words. And there's other marketing that we can use as well, such as posters, watches, magnets, awards, name tags, and banners. Team Spyder has produced a variety of all these different kind of things, always black or white with our logo, very much Team Spyder advertising. So I think the watches are pretty cool. You can wear them and it's not like obviously Team Spyder, but people who do know the team will be able to recognize it, and I think that's fun. And then once you kind of move past the marketing and representation of your team, you can get further into the actual fundraising. So the 5 rules of funding: know where the money is and follow it. Don't sit idle. Fundraising is all year round. And fundraising includes the entire community, like I already said. It's everyone, your families, students, mentors. And then always have a protege for a smooth transition. I'm a senior on the team, so I need to make sure that by the time I graduate, there's someone else on the team, hopefully a sophomore or freshman, that's able to take over so that by the time I'm gone, fundraising can still continue smoothly. And then this is something you want to practice with every single aspect of your team. Obviously, you need someone to be able to take over for all the different leads and know how to lead imagery or robot or business or any sort of part of your team. And then here is our tier donation structure. So depending on how much a sponsor or company donates to us, they'll have different benefits. So at the diamond level is if a company donates $20,000 or more. And in this case, the logo will be the largest in a premium spot on our robot, banners, website, press releases, and uniforms. Platinum is if they donate $10,000, in which case the logo will be on our robot, banners, website, press releases, and uniforms, and it'll still be pretty large, just not the largest. Gold is for $5,000, and the logo will appear in a medium size on our robot, banners, website, press releases, and uniforms. Silver is for $2,500, in which case the company logo will appear small on all of our stuff. Bronze is for $1,000, and so it'll appear on our website, press releases, and have a small space on our shirts. It just won't be on our robot or banner. And then smaller donations are anything less than $1,000. And this tier also includes in-kind donations as well as monetary. And then for this level of donation, your company will appear on our website and press releases. Then there's a bunch of different ways to obtain funds: monetary donations, in-kind donations, local fundraising events, legislation, grants, as well as scholarships and awards. So the first kind is monetary donations. It's essentially a direct donation. So if someone gives you $1,000, that's a monetary donation. Keep in mind, if they're conditional, sometimes you'll get a donation and they'll say, use this money for travel. So you have to keep documentation for this and remember that you can't use that funding for robot parts. You have to use it for travel. Another part you can look for is discount sales. Always ask for a discount or deal. If you mention to someplace that you're buying from that it's for like a STEM program, it's for your robotics team, they might be more willing to make a deal, which would also be a monetary donation. Also look out for industry and business partners, including one-time gifts and annual commitments. And then additionally, parent volunteers and mentors. Actively pursue leads from volunteers, staff, and community by surveying what they do in their spare time, ask them to provide leads to individuals, and have them network and report back. There are certain like parent mentors or volunteers on our team, and they really take the lead in fundraising and they help make deals for us, which is really helpful because students and like writing out to businesses can only do so much. You need to really involve the whole community. And then you can also involve professional mentors and vendors, work to actively involve the company that mentor works for, and then receive a specific time commitment. So if you have a mentor that works at an engineering company, have them get back and try to get a funding for your team. And then you can get local civic organizations, Rotary, VFW, Kiwanis, Chamber of Commerce, stuff like that, as well as reaching out to political leaders. So the school board members, city council members, water board, planning group members, as well as senators and assemblymen. This can also kind of work with legislation, like I'll talk about in a couple slides. But there have been recent reaches to kind of include STEM and broaden STEM within schools. So donating to a robotics club is a good way for political leaders to do that. Additionally, reach out with a letter, including the intent of funding and a fundraising sponsorship packet. But you're going to reach out with a different letter depending on who you're reaching out to, of course. If you're asking a parent to donate, it's going to be very different than if you're asking a political leader to donate, which is, again, going to be very different from a company. You have to really know who you're reaching out to. And then here's a couple examples of monetary donations, stuff that we have done with our team. So if you're buying new computers for your classroom, try to find them on a 50% off list. Additionally, if you have donation sponsor letters, you can get $2,500 from various companies. And then company sponsors, we have been able to get Evolution Control's $5,000 grant annually. And then we always do family donations of $250 per family. So at the start of the year, when everyone's registering, we ask for a donation. It's not required, but it is recommended and it helps out our team. We've had up to like 70 people on our team. So having a $250 donation per member is a big amount of funding that we can get. And then there's also in-kind donations as our second kind of fundraising. An in-kind donation is the transfer of any other kind of asset. In-kind gifts are contributions of gifts or services. They are gifts of capital-based items upon need. And when it comes to these, don't wait for the gifts to come to you. Actively seek out capital donations and provide a list of what you need. If you need certain machines or tools for your machine shop, make sure companies know this so you don't end up with duplicates of something you already have, and that's not really going to help you out in a way that it could otherwise. So an example of in-kind donations could be supplies, equipment, event support, or a meeting or office space. Then there's also fundraising events. So these require full participation from the team, and they're more work to complete than other types of fundraising. Just kind of writing a sponsorship letter to a company is something that can require the work of maybe one or two people. But when you're hosting a fundraising event or you're doing some sort of big action, you're really going to need everyone to help out with participating. So a couple examples would be SnapRaise, which is an online program, as well as like selling goods. Our team has sold discount cards where we have parent volunteers kind of outreaching and networking with different companies so that you can have like a discount on certain things. Then here's a couple examples of fundraising events that we've done. You can get money from sales, like $10,000 from flag postings, $1,500 from entertainment books, or $6,000 from candy sales, as well as local community events, $4,000 from an e-waste event. We hold multiple events like these per year. They're very helpful and they're one of the easier events to host. And then $2,000 from shredding events. And there's large scale public events, which are definitely more work. They take more planning, but they do also have a higher funding outcome. So they could be worth it depending on how much you plan on receiving from them. So $10,000 from community dinners or $10,000 from community auctions. And then when there's fundraising, make sure the students are participating. Again, And there's also student contact lists. On our team, we have these worksheets that we give near the start of the year, and they have 40 different contacts for our students to fill out. So there's different guardians, cousins, family members, family friends, stuff like that. And when the students fill it out, they have the contacts of 40 different people. And then at the same time, they do entrepreneurship and public speaking assignments. So there's a whole script talking about robotics teams, and they're able to develop a relationship. And then when you're talking about your teams and goals, you're able to market out your team to other people who could be potential donators. And it's really good to have people on your team reaching out, becoming better public speakers overall. And then here's the golden rule of sales. It's tied in with fundraising events. You need to keep this in mind whenever you're hosting events like this, to be focused on the customer and their needs, rather than being focused on the salesperson's desire to earn a commission. While you're donating, when you're asking for fundraising, you're not really earning a commission, but you are benefiting because your team is earning more. And then there's the golden rule attitude, golden rule principles, and the great harvest law. Treat people the way you want to be treated. Ask and treat the customer the way you would like to be treated if you were in their place. And then only conduct fundraisers that yield a profit of 50% or more. If you're working for a program in order to host the event and they have a certain amount of money that they require in order to host that event, you need to make sure you expect to make enough money that when they charge you, they're not taking more than 50% of what you've just earned for your team. Then you can also earn funding for your team through legislation. So you can help create Senate bills, Assembly bills, federal bills, or funding. There's a federal bill, the Carl D. Perkins Vocational and Technical Education Act, providing career and technical education instead of vocational education. And then typically district or school-wide don't normally expect or produce large grants for specific teams. So if you are helping to pass a bill through some sort of government and they're giving money, it's probably for STEM programs or engineering or science overall, not necessarily your specific robotics team. And while if you pass something like this, you're probably gonna get a good amount of money from it, don't expect it all to go to your team, because it's also going to go to your school or somewhere else in your community. And then there's also grants and scholarships. They can come through foundations or companies. Keep in mind when you're selecting the grant, make sure that your needs align to the grant needs, and always write to the prompt. Make sure that you meet the grant requirements. Like I said, with the monetary donations, there might be conditions to it, so make sure you fit into those conditions. And then there's small monetary grants, right? For grants that have little strings attached. If it isn't that much money overall, you want to make sure you're not having to kind of conform and fit into all these strings if it's really not that much money. And then, but when there's large monetary grants, be prepared to change your school practices. If it's enough money, it would definitely be worth it to kind of conform to those grants. And then include every aspect of the entire school, include the funding of existing and future employees. Be prepared to follow through with yearly conditions. Again, if it's a really good grant, you want to reapply every year. And it's super helpful if you get a good grant for your team. And then schools are also able to get funding through competitions and awards. You receive a gift through a competition or award once you win, most likely. And so an example would be $5,000 award from winning the Engineering Inspiration Award. Of course, this one comes from FIRST. It's a little more straightforward. Then there's other grants or awards winnings, like $50,000 award from Google for Doodle for Google. And so this one isn't through FIRST or any sort of robotics program, but it's open to anyone. And if you have someone from your robotics team who maybe does design or does imagery, they can enter that award with the intention of giving it to the robotics program. Same with the $75,000 award from the 2018 Vans Custom Culture Art Competition. You don't necessarily have to only apply or try to win competitions that are for your robotics team. As long as you have someone able to participate, they're a good way to earn funding for your team. while they are maybe less guaranteed than some other kinds of fundraising efforts. Thank you for listening to the presentation. I hope you learned lots about entrepreneurship and fundraising and how to really benefit your team with more funding.
Okay, so we have a couple questions from the chat. The first one's from Brendan, and he asks, what should be promoted on social media concerning marketing and fundraising? What is the best way to do this?
So if you're hosting an event, it's really important that you advertise it beforehand and also after, just kind of show the impact of your event. So our team has been hosting virtual webinars, so we make sure to have a sign-up sheet or some sort of thing to advertise it at least a week beforehand. If you can't really get it out that much sooner, you're not going to have as much traction with people. So make sure you have all the information about where it is, when it is, how people can sign up, if it is something to sign up for, and like provide all the information either in the actual post or the description. We use Instagram for most of our event advertising. You can use other social media as well. And then also your school's press releases or any sort of thing that your robotics team has to talk about your team and your events. If you're hosting a fundraising event, you want to use the same practices as any other event, but maybe it's more important to have more people show up. So try to advertise it further in advance, and then have multiple posts, maybe use stories on Instagram or any other social media to kind of get the word out about your event in order to have the highest participation as possible.
Okay, our next question is also from the chat. What things do you think should be included in a good elevator pitch for raising money for your team?
I think it's important that you talk about the history of your team. So when was it established? Have you won any awards? What things do you normally do? So like kind of chairman's team type things, if your business team or robotics team does that. So anything that you'd write in the essay, kind of condense it a little bit. Do you do global outreach? Do you do local outreach? Does your team mentor other FLL or FTC teams? Do you help donate or provide any sort of assistance to any other teams? How many events do you normally host? And you don't have to include all this if you're trying to condense it. You obviously don't need to include every single part of your team, but you really want to talk it up as much as possible while also being transparent. You know, don't exaggerate how great your team is, but definitely include everything that you can about it. Additionally, when you're talking about your team, kind of introduce yourself. If you're actually presenting, talk about who is currently on the team and leading, because it's really good to have a personal connection to who you're trying to pitch to.
Okay, so next question. Do you focus more on local companies, or is there no preference on fundraising?
I think typically Team Spyder does gravitate towards more local companies. It doesn't have to be local companies. I know we've reached out to NASA, which isn't that local, but it's not incredibly far away either. But then we have local companies like Northrop Grumman, which is not too far away from us, that we try to get sponsors for, and then things like that.
Okay, and how about our next one is, how do you set realistic goals when setting fundraising expectations in terms of what's right for the team?
So like I showed on one of the other slides, when you write out your budget, figure out how much money you're going to need for your t-shirts, how much money you're going to need to travel, how much you're going to need for your robot. Obviously, you can't really predict exactly how much you're going to need for every single part of your team, but kind of planning it out. Let me go back to the slide that has the budget so we can kind of show that. So registration, you need to know that. Coach stipends, substitute, coaches travel, robot shipping, t-shirts, giveaways, scholarships, and travel. You're not going to know exactly how much goes into each thing, but then kind of planning these out, thinking of any other categories your team might fit into, as well as maybe $1,000 extra potentially if you think you'd like to have that safety room. And $60,000 is a large amount of money. And it's not reasonable for every team. If you're a small team, you're kind of a new team, maybe it would definitely be harder to get that much funding. But then a large, well-established team would probably have an easier time getting to $60,000.
Okay, great. We have a couple more questions coming in from the chat, and Cam asks, what is the hardest part of getting sponsors, in your opinion?
I think it's really forming the connections. You can find sponsorships and like programs online, but it's not a guarantee that you're going to get it. So you need to make sure your sponsor letter is good. But then whoever is like doing communication, they're really forming a connection and making it so that the company will actually want to sponsor you, and make sure that the team benefits are strong enough as well. Because maybe a company isn't interested really in being on your t-shirt. You might need to find a way to make them interested, and doing so through a connection could work.
Okay, we have another one from the chat. What are the best ways to reach out to middle school and elementary schools to get rookie students interested? So I guess more on the recruitment and not particularly fundraising, but still a question to answer.
Team Spyder does a lot of recruitment, and we try to really grow our team. A couple years ago, we did have 70 members, and a lot of them were from middle schools, like after they moved to high school. So we make it a goal to have every student on our team mentor an FLL or FTC team. And so typically by the time they move on from that team, if they're on an FTC team in middle school and then they're in high school, knowing people from Team Spyder, they might want to join your team. I know there's a couple people who just joined high school and they were on an FTC team. They kind of knew some of the Team Spyder members because they were being mentored by them. And so they were encouraged to join the team, even if maybe they're not super into engineering or robots. They were interested in the imagery program because they did the projects when they were in FLL maybe. So mentoring is a good way to reach out and get students for your team, but then also hosting events. Our robotics team has a SWE, Society of Women Engineers program related to the team. They've kind of done some outreach to elementary and middle schools, kind of promoting engineering and FIRST and SWE and like anything related to women in STEM. And we make sure to mention whenever we're doing any sort of outreach, like the team is available to join once you're in high school. And then we also have some special cases. Sometimes we get 8th graders to join the team, which is for people who are like really enthusiastic about the team. And they're able to get their friends to join sometimes once they actually make it to high school.
Okay, so last question. Suppose the team is considering rebranding. What would your number one advice be to make their, I guess, logo and their branding content consistent and appeal to sponsors in the community outside of just FIRST?
Okay, I think coming up with your new logo, you need to think about your team name, like what you represent. If you maybe don't have a team name that's as simple as Spyder and it kind of doesn't have a like visual that kind of comes to mind when you think of the name, it's a little bit harder, but try to think of something simple, maybe not too many colors. Our Spyder is just plain black, no sort of details or shading along with it. So try to stay as simple as possible. Obviously you can have some sort of details, but you don't want to emphasize that, because when you come to print it on shirts or put it on banners, the simpler it is, the easier it will be to translate it to all those different products that you're making. And if you're rebranding, you need to make sure everyone knows that you're rebranding. If you are pretty active on your Instagram or social media, like make it apparent that the logo is changing, because if your profile picture maybe is your logo and all of a sudden it changes, could be confusing to some people. So make it apparent that you're rebranding, and then make it simple. And then companies and sponsors, I think that might not be the most important part to them when they're like looking to sponsor. I don't think they're really thinking, oh, they have a good logo, let's sponsor them. But the simpler it is, the easier it will be for them to remember it maybe.
Perfect. So that's all we have time for today. We'll be back after our 10-minute break at 5:50 Pacific to have our last workshop of the summer series, which is our empowerment panel. So please stay tuned for that, and thank you all for watching.
Hi everyone, welcome back to the summer series. This is our last panel for this series, and we are going to talk about empowerment and supporting minorities in FIRST. I'm Morgan Malloy, your moderator. I'm also going to be a panelist. I am a part of Team 5199, and I am the president. I've been on FIRST for 3 years now, going on to 4.
Hi guys, my name is Chisato. I am a member of Team 2485, the Warlords from San Diego, and I am an incoming senior and serving as the co-president this year.
Hi, my name is Pauline, process development engineer at Virgin Hyper. I'm an alumni of Team 589 Falcon Robotics, also mentored 3476 Code Orange for a while, now as a volunteer and advocate. So yeah, fun stuff. Can't wait to chat.
Hi, I'm Jolyn. I'm a team member on Team 3476 Code Orange, and this is my 4th year on the team, and I am currently the business lead on the team.
Cool, so without further ado, we have a few pre-prepared questions, but if anyone has any other questions, please put them in the chat. We will be taking those first before anything else. So without wasting any time, the first question is, what are some ways that your team supports minorities in STEM inside your team and also outside your team?
I would say that one of the ways that we sort of deliberately support this sort of diversity and minorities within our team is that through one of our mandatory trainings, which we call a Team 101, something that we make sure to include is a sort of pledge to sort of include everyone and to make sure that sort of along with FIRST guidelines and also our school's guidelines that our team sort of our team never accepts any sort of discrimination or hate of any sort, and that we just set that as a foundation for all starting members.
For 5199, we have been working very hard on getting more girls involved for STEM. So we joined SWOT Next, which is an organization, and we've been working with them trying to make more like panels kind of like this, where girls in the industry kind of come in and they talk to our girls and they kind of like show them their pathway and how they did it. So that would be inside our team. And then outside of our team, we also, through SWOT Next, we got a grant, and we have been working on doing what we call sisterhood. So like a sisterhood type of mentorship thing. We've been starting out just this summer where we took elementary girls and we did like a camp with them 2 days a week. And we would teach them kind of like everything about engineering and how to get started. Most of these girls had very little experience already with robotics. And we kind of were like raising them up and kind of giving them someone to look to so that they can be like, oh, look we can be just like her. And then we are hoping on keeping on going this program and making them an FLL team so they can continue this through their elementary and hopefully go to FTC and then eventually FRC.
Yeah, I think Morgan brings up, I think the biggest thing that really helps minorities go through STEM, it's having representation that looks like that person in front of them. I know for me, the first time I had a female role model do engineering in front of me, it changed my life truly. I got to be in a room with 10 female engineers and just talk to them and share experiences, and having that on your team and having either a minority mentor or other students really helps you go through it because you have a shared experience with that person. So the more we can do that, I think the better it can be.
I totally agree with like the representation part and how that makes people feel more welcome just from like the appearance and looking in on the program as a whole. For me personally, it was also like a similar experience in which seeing like other girls being student leaders helped me feel more comfortable in taking on a big position that was originally outside of my comfort zone, and then being able to inspire newer girls who join the team to also feel like they could become leaders too.
Now, this is somewhat similar of what we just recently touched on, but how do you encourage minorities who are afraid to join STEM to join STEM?
Sorry. if we're going back to recruiting girls in STEM, so Code Orange is like a community team, so we can accept people from different areas and schools, but this is kind of like, we're trying to leverage our status to take on a more active approach in being more equitable and inclusive. And one of the ways we're trying to appeal to more minorities, especially girls, is through building connections with Girl Scouts, which is similar to what Morgan was mentioning earlier about recruiting more girls. Like through one of our team members on the team who has a connection with a Girl Scout, we can connect with mentors there and eventually broaden our outreach impact to kind of connect with them, and then hopefully be able to come up with some sort of event that can impact a wider community.
Yeah, and I think I totally agree with that sort of sentiment. And I think for our team specifically, sort of like SWE Next, we founded what we call WOW, which is a female empowerment program for FRC teams back in 2013, and now we've been expanding it to other teams, nationwide as well, and basically through that we have various events, one of which we call Now Wows, which is very similar to what Morgan was mentioning, where we bring in female role models, and we not only give our team members an opportunity to see these successful professional women in the world, but then also have discussion and reflect on how we can be more welcoming and more open, and just have more of those discussions that I think are better for everyone.
Yeah, if we take it in a different direction, so like obviously females are a minority in STEM, but like for me, for example, one of my struggles, I was a first generation college student. My parents didn't go to college. STEM wasn't really a career path that I ever even thought about. And so I actually really needed that encouragement as that minority to go into a STEM field. I wasn't even really going to go to college. And what helped me was I went into this robotics meeting first on a whim. My friend joined. I wanted to leave, but my mentor at the time gave me such an easy task that I could own. I could own this easy task of just bending some polycarb into shape, and I started falling in love with it. And having someone feel ownership over something really changes their perspective and gives them that encouragement and empowerment to continue on. And I think when you're able to give that to someone, they really stick it out for the long run.
I totally agree. I feel like for me, I can't just be told that you can do it. It's more like I have to be shown. I have to be like, someone needs to literally look over my shoulder and be like, see, you can do this. I can teach you. I can like walk through the steps. I need someone I can really shadow. That really helps to have that one-on-one connection. Someone you can really lean on, especially if you're afraid to go into something. It's so much easier when there's someone that you can always ask questions to, that you're never afraid to talk to. So going on to our next question, this one relates more with the like SWE Next and the WOW. Why should other FRC teams join pre-existing empowerment programs? We can also take this, should FRC joint teams create their own empowerment programs? Pauline, if you're talking, I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
I muted it on this thing, but not Zoom. So for me, what was I saying? Joining things like SWE or any other program similar to that, as someone who's an engineer and kind of does the other side of it, of hiring people, when I see that people were involved in SWE or any program similar, I go to those conferences to find future engineers and future problem solvers. And so the more involvement you guys get in that at a young age, the more companies look at you and say, hey, like this person is not just, good at math and science, but they're also a well-rounded individual. And I think that's incredibly important. because we don't have a lot of those as engineers.
Touching on a lot of previous points, I think it's important to join or create these kinds of empowerment programs, not only for the people that are already on your team, but for prospective members joining, because for me it was because WOW was this already existent program and on our team, they a group of the high school robotics team, they came over back when I was in 8th grade, and they did a whole presentation, and just how cool it was to join robotics and to be a girl in STEM, or just to be in STEM in general. And that sort of encouraged me and many of my friends to really want to join this community of dedicated people who were so passionate about STEM. And we knew going in right away that we would be supported and that we would have a sort of community of people just within our school that we could rely on and then that we could work with. So I think it's really important for the recruitment aspect especially.
I think that doing both, creating your own like organization with doing empowerment programs and kind of joining ones that are pre-existing are both very good options. I think that for pre-existing ones, it's really nice to have this big, huge network that's already there for you and laid out, and you already have people you can look to and you can kind of like see what everyone else is doing. For making your own, I feel like it's really nice because you get to see firsthand kind of what your work is going into, because it's a little bit more personalized and you get to kind of like see how like the little girls are being affected. For us, for 5199, we're kind of in like the middle situation where we're kind of creating our own with the sisterhood thing. So we get to see the little girls actually like grow up through the program and see them kind of grow as a engineer. But then we also have the SWE next, so we have all the networks of everyone in SWE to kind of help us along. For our next question, does your team host empowerment panels? And if so, how does your team go about organizing them? I can go first for this. Our team has been doing a lot of panels actually with like Pauline, and we have actually been sort of invited to do panels with a bunch of other people in FIRST. We started off with a very small one, just like Girls in Robotics, and it was basically going to elementary people. And we had, I think, like 3 of our girls kind of help with that. We did like the posters for it, we did a lot of advertising for it, and then we got other FIRST teams to come in and help. And we pretty much did a panel, and we had them like all come in, and we talked to them about the different levels of FIRST. And then we had at the end a fun little challenge where they drew a robot to do their chores. It was really cute to see all their faces and all the little colorful robots that they drew. And we kind of moved up and we went to, I think it was like high schoolers and kind of like doing different high school graduates from FIRST and seeing kind of their journey. And then we went into like college and like all the different majors that they are in there to kind of help girls kind of figure out what majors they want to go to. And then we did industry ones. So we kind of like grew and progressed our panels. For organizing them, it was a lot of actually Zooms. We did like a Zoom like once a week, and we just kind of sat down and we kind of talked. Like one week was like planning the panels, what was the topic. We always had trouble with a name, figuring out who's going to do flyers, advertising, getting our panelists. And then it was just really focusing on advertising to make sure that as much people as possible could come.
So yeah, I think our team also tries to do as many sort of empowerment panels as possible as well. We call them now wows. But basically how we go about them is we primarily rely on contacts that maybe, our mentors or our parents or someone else in our school has. And we like to invite them over before COVID. We tried to have them in person now it's mostly or completely virtual, which actually opens up a lot of opportunity to connect with female professionals, sort of, really from anywhere, anywhere in the country and in the world. But basically, yeah, we basically just try to, to have them share their story, their failures, how their failures and their successes, and how, how they sort of journeyed to where they are. And we try to have a wide variety of people. So we've had people working, ranging from people working, in 5G at Qualcomm to, aerospace engineers, and, and women who are an active member on their BattleBots team. So we sort of really tried to get a diverse range and just get people to sort of see the opportunities that are out there, because I think many of us just don't realize how vast this world can be, and it's really nice to hear that firsthand and to actually kind of be shown firsthand too.
Perfect. And our next question is, why is it important to support minorities or girls in STEM?
I mean, really loaded question. But the gist of it, for me at least, is I think it's so incredibly important to get more perspectives in the things that you use every day. I mean, for me, I work with maybe 2 other females every day, and we're designing some cool stuff. And the more women input, the more minority input, you're making product for all those people. You need their important input in order to make a good product that serves every single person. And you know what? Like, women are really smart and organized, so we definitely need more of them in STEM. And it would be great to have more folks that just kind of can collaborate together, not always having the same opinion at once.
I just think everyone should have the same opportunities to explore their interests. So STEM programs might be more readily available to certain groups who are already dominating those fields. But there may be other people from minority groups who have the interest or the talent or whatever and want to get involved. They just don't have the resources or don't know how. And so that's why being active in supporting them and making opportunities, like giving opportunities to people, is important.
Perfect. And I totally agree with what everyone has said. It's very important to have the perspectives for one thing, but also just not let anything stop people that are interested. Because it's very sad to have like a dream to do something and just like not know how to like keep on going through it and actually see it come to life, and just to keep on just having the idea in your head, but not ever actually being able to pursue it. So, time for the next question. How does your team empower students, specifically leaders?
On our team, so our philosophy is student-led and mentor-guided. So basically, we are obviously very thankful to have our mentor support, and in a lot of things we do have to have that adult supervision and that mentor support, but we really try to keep everything led by the students, from the initiation of any idea to the completion of the product, in this case a robot, and a lot of other things as well. But we just try to, I think, just just keep it so that it's never dominated by the professionals or the adults, or what have you. It's that every student, whether you're a rookie member or you're a veteran member, you're the ones that are creating the ideas and making it come to life. So I think that's how we really try to empower our student leaders, but really all of our students, to just step out of their comfort zone and really try to make a meaningful contribution on the team.
For our team, we really try to make sure that they stick with it. I feel like a lot of girls can kind of come in and come overwhelmed. Most of them are fit to be leaders. It's just if they kind of just stick with it and show that they can do it. And there is like normally like a little rough patch at the beginning, but once they get over the little hurdle, they are like literally all set up to be leaders, and there's nothing really stopping them. So for the next question, how do you support minorities to stick with STEM? So kind of what I touched on in the long run. And then the way that 5199 makes sure that our members stick with STEM is we really try to bring one of our veterans and kind of pair them with one of our newer members, try to make sure that they have someone to actually talk to, someone that they can lean on. It's really important if someone comes in and they're like overwhelmed and they don't know what to talk to, that can make them feel very lost and not really like know how to maybe work on this one piece or do this one machine. If they have someone that they can like comfortably talk to, it's so much easier for them to just ask that question. It may be a very simple question, like how do I turn this thing on? But just like having that person that they're confident to ask that question to really helps. So just making sure we kind of have like a buddy program where they can shadow someone someday and kind of like have someone they can lean on.
I agree wholeheartedly. For me, when I was a student on my old robotics team, I was always so scared to ask any questions because I didn't want to look stupid. I didn't want to, I don't know how to turn this on, but really having just someone there that I could ask questions to and I felt comfortable asking questions to was the most helpful thing. Even beyond high school, when I got to college engineering is hard. I wanted to quit a couple of times, honestly, but I had someone I could go talk to that I didn't feel ashamed talking to. And I have that now in my career. And I think that's ultimately what really keep sticking through all the hard, cool stuff that we do, is just having that confidant, like Morgan was saying. So 100% agree. Yeah.
Oh, also recently our team, our student leaders went through the, I think the youth advisory committee released like the ED&I training. So we had our student leaders try that out, kind of see how that would benefit us and how we could apply it practically. And one of the approaches, and this kind of ties back into what we were discussing earlier about having like a project to be able to complete and have like an accomplishment on the team. So we kind of set up like rotational training is just for every sub team to come up with an introduction to that aspect of the team and have like a small project or activity that was easy for all team members with or without experience to accomplish. So that kind of, yeah, that just goes back to like being able to accomplish something helps people like stick with it in the long run and build their interest.
Yeah, I think to touch on a slightly different point, I think one of the things that we try to do is to start early. So basically to start empowering everyone, minorities and girls included, but really everyone, from, basically like elementary school. So, back when you're in FLL, and then also when you're in middle school as well. So our team mentors, we have 4 middle school teams, FLL teams that we mentor, and we really try to allow those students to discover their love for STEM and to just be surrounded by that, that supportive environment from early on, even before they come to high school and join our FRC teams. And throughout, we try to do outreach as well. So this past year, when we were all virtual, we made like virtual science experiments with elementary school students. So we made little kits. We made like little lava lamps, or we made fake snow, and explained to them the science behind it. So things like that, really just trying to start early, and allowing every student to sort of feel empowered, and to sort of very feel welcomed in that realm, even before they come into our high school.
Perfect. And for our next question, What differences have you seen from supporting minorities in STEM on your team?
I'll just say that I think everyone just generally feels more comfortable and is more willing to step out of their comfort zone. Um, I think, now on our team, WoW has been around for long enough that I personally have been really fortunate to always have been on a team where we have a program. We very deliberately support girls and minorities in STEM, and so that allows for that just allows everyone to immediately feel welcomed and feel okay with some asking what some might think initially are stupid questions, or I should have already known this kind of thing. I think that base layer is eliminated, and I think everyone just feels more comfortable. And statistically too, I think this year our preliminary roster I think is 41% female, so that's almost half and half, girls and boys. So I think it really does make a tangible difference on your team.
For our team, I think it's been very helpful to have our high school girls actually see the elementary girls and see their enthusiasm they have for engineering. I think it's actually really cute, and just like them being able to have this much creativity and just have this much fun with it is very inspiring. It not only is us helping them kind of like get into engineering and feel like they can be included and feel like they can do it, but it's also helping us because of their just enthusiasm to do math and engineering, and all this stuff really just kind of brightens our day. And I very much recommend hanging out with little kids that are enthusiastic. It's very funny. For our next question, how can you make sure minorities and underrepresented groups feel heard and involved?
This is such a good question. I'm really excited to hear what you guys will say. But for me, I think some of the hardest things people can do is truly listen to someone. I think a lot of the time, and I'm guilty of this too, is when someone talks and is trying to feel heard, you try to come up with a response instead of just really listening to that person's struggles and what that person is trying to tell you. I think one, learning how to become an actual listener and putting yourself in someone's shoes is incredibly important. It's very difficult to do, taking a little bit of yourself out of the situation and seeing something from another perspective. But I think you also just need to really sit there and understand that you have not lived in this person's experience at all. You have not lived in what this person has felt. And so you need to, whether you agree with something or not, need to at least hear them out. And I think for me, when I do these panels on women in STEM, sometimes it makes me sad when all I see in the audience is a bunch of women, because really you need everyone in the room involved in that conversation. You need the other men involved, you need other mentors, you need other people, parents, so everyone is in that room hearing what people are feeling. And I think when you have a group of diverse people listening to someone, they got to listen. You can't really ignore it when you hear a bunch of people talking to you. So that's me.
For me, I really think that, like I've said multiple times, having that one person they can lean on, I think that one person they can just feel like they could talk to, that really helps with the feeling heard. And then also not only having that person to talk to, but having that person to kind of like join them into the group. Like they're able to like lead them into the group and show them what can be done next, kind of give them the next steps. This could be something as simple as like, oh, this part's done on the robot, so let's work on this part next. So just someone that can like kind of help them move up the train and kind of learn one thing to the next.
I 100% agree with both of your points, and I think to Pauline's point of listening, I think I, also am sort of guilty of sometimes when you try maybe to assert, yourself in a space, it's very easy, especially if you're, the minority in any group, to sort of forget what's around you, and to sort of very much be focused on yourself and just forget to listen and observe. And it's not to say that you have to, you have to try to empathize with everyone or try to live in someone else's experiences, because that becomes inauthentic. But I think one of the most important things you can do is to just take a moment and step back and see the people around you, and really try to just try to work with them, listen to them, and have conversations with them. Not necessarily to try to have the same experience or trying to be in someone else's shoes, but just trying to sort of really leverage the community that is already around you, whatever that may be, and to sort of make sure that you are being represented, but then also everyone else is sort of being heard as well, and everyone has the power to do that as an individual.
And we got our first question from the chat, so thank you guys so much. Keep them up. Even as students transition into leaders, would you recommend that that leader still has a mentor as they are being mentored into the next generation of leaders?
I can answer this. So when I was a leader on my team, I would tell you, no, I got it. I don't need any mentors teaching me what to do. But I think at a certain point, having some level of mentorship, literally any point in your life, is important. Whether you are a senior in high school or a senior citizen, having someone that you can at least get some guidance from is important. But I think as students transition into leadership roles, you do have to give them the opportunity to, one, be an actual leader and make those decisions and learn from them, their mistakes themselves, but also have that chance to try to mentor younger kids without your input. Like, you mentored them, they learned some of the things they liked that you did and some of the things you didn't like that they did. They got to try it their own way. And when they need advice, your job as the mentor is to give them the advice and let them take it if they want to and let them not if they don't want to. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think Pauline answered that perfectly. So another question in the chat is, to help empower new members on your team, do you need them to be a leader on a team or a mentor, or can anyone be on the team? So basically, to empower someone, do you need to be a lead on the team, or can it just be anyone? I think by the shaking of heads, I think everyone agrees that anyone can do it. Really, you don't need to be a leader, and you shouldn't be a leader to be empowering people. It should just come second nature. So we have another question from the chat, so thank you guys. How do your teams handle training people to step up into leadership positions? Do you use techniques like shadowing, leads or mentors a lot, or is there any other methods you use?
I mean, for me, obviously I'm not on a team right now, but the way that I think really works well is shadowing another leader that is similar to what you eventually want to be. I think if you, for example, are, the leader for the manufacturing department on your team, and you see that there are a couple students that are interested in manufacturing, really taking the time and working with them, sitting with them. And as they get older in the program and you think that person might be taking that slot over, taking them into more meetings, taking them under your wing a little bit. I think learning from another student who just went through your experiences and you might have that new experience of being a leader is incredibly important. I think as a mentor, Your job is to teach them kind of interpersonal skills on how to deal with problems. When you're a leader, you got a lot of problems on the team you got to deal with. And I think mentors can help guide through that. But I think for being a leader, it's best taught by the leader if they were a good leader before you. If they were a bad leader, maybe we got to do some other things. But if they were a good leader, learning from them, I think is important.
On our team, we kind of unofficially use like the term ACEs in sub-teams. It's just kind of like students who are trained and now experienced in like a sub-team they're interested in. I think that kind of helps with empowering them to become a leader, because even if one student is holding on to like the official leadership title, they obviously can't oversee everything and everybody. So distributing some workload, like maybe one person can organize this aspect of the team and be leads of like sub teams, I guess, kind of lets them also be leaders while not necessarily being called a student leader.
And then like on our team, I've said this a lot of times, but I personally really like shadowing. It's kind of how I was brought into FIRST and how I like to bring other people that I see into FIRST. I think it's also a lot more fun for me as kind of like a leader, quote unquote, to be able to work personally with the person you're kind of bringing up and just have that extra connection with them. So another question we have is, how do you promote a culture of acceptance and inclusion on your team?
I think we mentioned this earlier, but I think taking things like a diversity and inclusion course and having that as something your entire team is trained on is incredibly important. I'm so happy that the leaders on your team were doing that. It makes me incredibly happy. But taking those courses and saying, hey, like not only we're going to teach you to like, wear safety glasses in the shop, but we're also going to show you that this is also an important aspect. And at least getting their eyes in front of it will help a lot, and they can take that training and kind of implement it as they continue through the program, and refreshing that training every year too, I think is cool.
Perfect. And then we have one last question. How would you suggest other teams start empowering others?
I think first, it falls on, I think, just very initially on your leaders to take that first step into. You don't have to like make a program or go all out in that regard, but just reach out to newer members and say, hey, your voice is welcomed. If you have any questions, this is a safe space and you can ask anyone, including yourself. So I think having your student leaders sort of take that first step into just saying and acknowledging that, everyone's going to have questions, everyone's going to have some kind of insecurity or, something that they're unsure about, and to just say that, that's totally accepted, that's great, we want your voice on the team, we want your input, and to really just start with that. I don't think it's necessary at all to be like, oh no, we are going to have all these panels and join this and do that. That's great, but I think to start you can just have those conversations within your team.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think actions speak louder than words, I guess. Technically it is words too, but more like actions speak louder than actually like joining a specific program. Like if you join a program and you're like, oh yay, we're doing it, but you don't actually follow through with it, it's really important just to like make sure everyone feels included, recruit everyone you can, and make sure that everyone actually like can be brought through this system and isn't dropped out. Perfect. And thank you guys so much for watching. That's the end of 2021 summer series. We hope everyone here gained some valuable knowledge from our presenters on all things FIRST. Thank you everyone for watching, and we'll see you next year.